All right. Hi, I am Katrina Coombs from Kingston, Jamaica. I'm a textiles and fiber artist based here. That's it. I don't know.
Welcome back to another edition of Mobile Reasoning. Today I'm going to be talking with Katrina Coombs. If you've never heard the name before, please do yourself a favor and look up Katrina Coombs. Art is going to talk to you in a whole different way. Katrina,
Yeah.
how are you?
I am good, Charles. And you?
I am a happy man. I am
Wonderful.
happy because I am surrounded by this wonderful artwork
Thank you.
that for me is speaking to me. So I can just imagine what it did for you when you were creating them. Tell me a little bit about Katrina, where you're from. Let's get that stuff out of the way first, and then we get into the good stuff.
All right. So where I'm from here. I am from Stony Hill, born and grow in cool hills of St. Andrew. Went to Meadowbrook High School, where I got introduced to macrame, and that's kind of where my love for textiles kind of grew. And then I went into college at Endemane College of the Visual and Performing Arts, where I studied textiles and fiber arts, and fell in love with weaving on a whole, but also just the subtle nature of the material of just fiber, something so simple, so subtle that can just be built into a majestic form and express feelings, emotions, and stories.
You know, those last few words that you use, a majestic form that can express feelings and tell stories. I was reading a little bit about you, and that is what really intrigued me to come and talk with you, because you have a lot of different artists out there that just, that they create in order to sell to the public.
Yeah.
But it's almost like you have a relationship with the material that you use.
Yeah.
You give each thing its own personality. You let it come out and dictate to you how things are supposed to happen. Tell me about that.
Pretty much that's kind of one of the ways that things do happen with creating the works. I mean, initially, it's the medium in itself. It can do so much things, and I think it's just my crave for exploration, my crave to create and pushing the boundaries of the medium in any way, shape or form that I possibly can. But also even just fiber is a spiritual medium. It is considered to be highly spiritual. It's connected back to our ancestors right across the world, whether if we accept it or not, but it's also very maternal and domestic medium, because you make clothes, fabric, basins, containers, vessels, that would have been the traditional forms or the traditional objects that we create with the medium. But what it also does is it creates and captures a time, a moment that it is now being created. Because if you look back in history, or even let me not even say history, but present, and different ethnic groups or tribes, they create, when one sits down and they create a vessel, there are forms, imagery that reflect what's happening right and around the person as they are creating it. So it's almost as if the threads and fibers capture the energies of that time, that moment, that existence of the person who is creating it.
That's almost like fashion, right? So fashion speaks to how the society is going on right now, and sometimes society speaks to fashion.
It speaks a lot to our identity as we exist within this very moment and time. Fashion has the components of fiber. Fashion cannot exist without fiber, and fiber creates our identity as to who we are, where we are located. You can define a person just by what it is they're wearing, as to what status they perhaps may have, or where they perhaps may work, or which culture it is that they're from. So yeah.
And that goes across the world, because
Definitely.
on the African continent, you are known as royalty by the type of material that you wear.
Yes.
You are known as to be a part of this clan or this ethnic group,
Yes.
because of the type of clothes you wear. In in America, different stratosphere, different societal people wear different type of clothes. If you go into corporate America, you see the more finely woven suits with the high quality thread count and those things. Whereas if you go into a pawn shop and looking for clothes, then you're going to see most likely the high lower thread count and the less quality and stuff like that. The difference between the type of dress that someone wears as a operator, as a CEO, is vast.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
So it's the same thing that I'm seeing even with the art pieces that I've seen from you. They speak, like you were saying, to the mindset you were in when you were creating it. I noticed that your pieces speak a lot to femininity.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
All right, so my pieces, you can say they are autobiographical in some sense. They speak to my own identity as a woman, as I exist as a woman, going through different processes of life, just from your identity crisis to acceptance, but just that the struggling with the social construct of what a woman is expected to be and how she's expected to carry herself, dress, sit, speak, the chores or duties that she's required to carry, and just how that affects the woman's persona, how it affects her mentally, physically, and just that strain and that constant battle that a woman has right throughout her life. So it began as an exploration into just, okay, I am now transitioning from one stage into another. I see myself here, but the world expects me to be here. And how do you find that in between, and how that tug and war pretty much initiates itself with one trying to just exist
as
a woman. So that's kind of where the exploration started, and it has evolved far beyond that now, where it's directed me even to my own personal issue of going through loss, and how that loss affects the woman's body, and how we pretty much isolate ourselves just by the menstrual cycle. And what that does is our mindset is carried right throughout. Just, okay, there's a certain period within the month I'm going through this experience. There's always this sense of chaos. There's always this sense of doubt. Persons who want to be pregnant, am I pregnant, am I not pregnant? That whole drama that happens as one associates with themselves, but even associates with the opposite sex, and how that affects us as we carry right throughout life. There's no way getting away from it. And just how the woman's body is this beautiful gem, and there's just so much that happens around it, and we don't necessarily have the conversations that relate to the woman's existence and her womb, where it becomes almost this object that is othered. And in the conversation of othering, for me, other means the external person to the self, or even the internal organ to the self, because even we ourselves other it, because you hear us talking about, oh, the red auntie come visit, or the red lady coming soon, or something like this. It's not I am going through this. It is something else that's coming to me, and just how that process then leads into the womb as a maternal object, an object of life creation, an object that constantly takes and gives,
That's, I love the focus, especially in these times now when we're seeing more females take the helm, right? And not only that, but seeing society more pay attention and normalize the existence of the woman, because the woman at one point was put somewhere and say, be there and do that, and we'll allow you in every now, right? But now society is, especially in Jamaica now, we're starting to see a great change in the roles of the household, of the relationship or whatever. And we're seeing more men being active fathers.
Yes.
And we're seeing more women in corporate Jamaica and in leadership roles. Now, the importance for me with your work is that you're bringing the story of the womb and all the stories that are connected to it into normalcy.
Yes.
I notice
Yes.
your use of the word other a lot.
Yes.
Right? And where your artwork looks like it's trying to remove the othering of things and make it. I notice you talk I and the I and all of that.
Yes.
And explain that type of verbiage that you use to explain your reality.
All right, so that exploration started when I was doing my master's at Transart Institute sometime back, and and I was drawn into the concept of psychoanalysis, mainly from Laplanche's perspective as opposed to Sigmund Freud, where there's the process of the psychoanalysis, the patient, the chair, you know, and how there is this story that's constantly repeating itself, you know, because say I am the patient, I'm constantly giving you the story, and each time there are slight shifts, you know, and then it's for you now to say, okay, what about this that you keep pinpointing but you're not acknowledging it, you know. So it's not like you're even telling me what to do, but you're just noticing the little light bulbs or red flags that pop up, and then know, okay, what about this, for me to know, acknowledge, and perhaps find the deeper meaning behind whatever it is that I am focusing on, you know. But then know that whole scenario of the circumstances of the three also rotates itself, and it can also happen not just with having three individual, but it can be one individual that becomes the three different segments, and constantly processing that entire segment to then understand the self, the I. You know, you have to other the self to know who I am, because you have to see yourself through another's eyes most times, because that's how we kind of navigate throughout our life. Always we believe we know what we are and what we're doing. However, sometimes we don't even acknowledge or even realize how I am to you. And that is very important as we go through in terms of how do we relate to each other, how do we other the self, and then now just taking that conversation from the existence of different beings to now understanding it with the body, and where the physical being that is seen by others versus my internal being, and then there's the I. How do I negotiate with all of these three circumstances, and kind of pulling all of that information together as I work and as I process through. So it's kind of a constant process of psychoanalysis for me in creating the works, in just existing with the medium, existing with a thread. Sometimes the threads become my chair, sometimes it becomes the analyst, sometimes it becomes the patient, you know, and it's just that interaction that I'm constantly having with the work, with the notion of loss, the notion of the maternal figure, the notion of how we exist with each other, and just kind of allowing that energy, that focus to just kind of go into the work and allow the pieces to just speak.
So I love that explanation, and you know, in a very shallow way, I was thinking that when I was reading about you and you were mentioning the other and the I was like, oh, I wonder if Rastafari have anything to do with it. anyway,
not entirely, but they're very spiritual.
Absolutely.
And it's a lot of the same concept that kind of evolves through Rastafarianism. I don't necessarily dive into it, but it is related, and we can find connections.
Well, you see, the thing about it that I've been told with Rastafari is that it is the I in I.
The I
right?
and I.
So I and I, right? So so that's that. But you keep on mentioning in your explanation of your work one word that I want to go back to, and that one word is loss. Tell me a little bit about that, and how is that so prevalent in your work?
All right, so loss, that initiation, I think, in terms of identity, because remember the whole process of the psychoanalysis where there's something that's repeating but you're just not acknowledging it. I acknowledged that as being what was driving most of my work, but just hidden within it, probably around 2050 when I lost my father. And then just how that affected me mentally, psychologically, physically, and just how that process of going through the loss of the father kind of pulled me back to an earlier loss that I had and have not yet acknowledged at that point in time, which was the loss of a child.
Okay.
And just how that process of that loss, and now finding my point in time to acknowledge it, I was able to do that acknowledgement when I got my very first residency that took me to Colombia. And I was in a space away from family, away from home, away from everything else, and I could just dive straight into my practice and just say, okay, what is it that I'm focusing on? And just, that's all that I was able to focus on, because the residencies, they cover it's a fully funded residency, so accommodations, you don't have to worry about living for 3 months.
Wow.
Like all I did was just studio, work, present, right? And just how that evolution of being in a space such as that with other creative beings, and then now being able to really centralize my focus and tunnel vision it, I realized now that that loss was guiding a lot of what it is that I was creating, or why I'm doing what I was doing. And it also allowed me to speak to it subtly, not out loudly as I am now. But I was able to touch on it, and then that allowed me to open up more. And it also opened my eyes to the fact that this is an activity that happens to probably 3 in every 5 women in the world. You know, there is loss, whether if it is through miscarriage, stillbirth, abortion, there is some process of that loss happening at some point in time, and it's just a conversation that just does not happen. So at that point, I started to first address my own issues, address my own issues of that loss of the child, how the body reacted to it, how mentally, psychologically, why do I keep doing that? Anyways, how mentally I was
That's your special word
with,
today.
I know, right? How mentally I was struggling with the whole situation, but then no, just it's this process that it's almost normal, but we don't make it normal. We make it into this taboo conversation that's not safe to have a conversation around, to nobody, not even within your home space you're having a conversation about it, because everybody's on pins and needles. So just attempting to address that first within my own work. You see it in my earlier pieces, like even that one behind you there where there's a ton of, like, thousands of pins in there, but just how to navigate around acknowledging this happened to me, acknowledging that it's okay. It's okay to feel what you feel and to exist with this loss and accept it. So going through that entire grieving process, even though the situation happened in like 2005, it wasn't until 2015 that I actually started to acknowledge this, and just diving into the work and letting the work take that energy, take that feeling, take that emotion, holding it and putting it out there. Being brave enough to say, okay, this is my truth. And that's also when I realized how significant it is as an artist to speak your truth in your work. Because a lot of times when you're young coming up, you're attempting to navigate through what people expect you to present, or what the norms of society thinks that art should be, what should go on the wall, what should be presented as sculptural pieces, and you try to shape yourself in that, not realizing that you're not speaking your own truth. So that's when now, in speaking my own truth, I found my path with my works. And in speaking that, I've also been able to open up and realize all of the other women who have gone through this experience, and the conversations have kind of pretty much grown to the point where I myself am comfortable with having this convo, and without having to twitch or feel anyway, and then just realizing how much power there is in having that conversation, and how necessary it is for us to have that conversation, to realize that yes, you've gone through this process of loss. Yes, it's torn you apart. It's torn apart relationships, but you can build back from it. And how can you build back from it? And that you, as a woman, as a person, one of the key things is to first face it, acknowledge it, you know, before you can even reach acceptance, because it will never leave you. It will never leave you. So, yeah.
Interesting. Now, and is it May that you're having your exhibition?
The exhibition is in May.
Yeah.
It opens May 22nd. Yes.
And
at the Sarasota Museum.
Sarasota Museum.
Yes. Okay, so this exhibition, it pretty much initiated out of a couple of things. Engagement with Diaspora Vibe Cultural Arts Incubator led by Rosie Gordon Wallace. She's the head of Diaspora Vibe, which they had given me a residency in Florida a couple of years back at Fountainhead Residences, where I engaged with them, and honestly, networking works, guys. You really need to, and it's not even so much networking, just being in the right place at the right time and just having the right conversations. Because I could go way, way, way back with even how that engagement from when I was a student, them coming down, Diaspora Vibe, they do these incubators where they go to different countries in the Caribbean, and they bring together different artists from the Caribbean to each country and exhibit works. So I had engaged with her from I was a student at Etna, and they had came with a group of them and they exhibited at the Cage Gallery that time. And then I engaged further when I was actually the curatorial assistant to the Cage this time, graduated, and I was back at Etna working there at the Cage. And then now, them having to come to my studio space as an artist to do a studio visit, and she's like, we have these residencies so and so. So she was talking to the group in general, and I was just like, listen, I want a residency. Just saying it out of the fun of it, you know? And that gave me that opportunity to be there and to show my work in Miami. And it expanded to where they ended up having an exhibition, intersectionality, diasporic art from the Creole city, in which they had artworks from 22 or 23 Caribbean artists exhibiting in this touring exhibition, which went to the Harvey B. Gantt Museum. It was at, oh wow, the names are slipping me. It was in Washington, D.C., at the Cochrane, and then it went to Miami at the Moores 200, and that's where it ended at the time. And from there was a piece that was exhibited, and the curator of Sarasota Museum saw the work, and she was interested in the piece. She met with Rosie, and Rosie proposed herself as to curate an exhibition of my works, and it's kind of how that entire story came about for me to end up there.
And I mean, your work has been all around the world. I mean,
yes.
Where haven't you touched that? Let's start, because
I think touched a lot of
no,
places.
man, that list is short,
I haven't touched a lot of places. I still have a lot of places to
Where
go.
would you like to play?
Where would I like to play?
Yeah.
I'd like to go to Ireland, Sweden. I would like to go to Europe, Venice. I haven't touched Europe much. That's where I want to go.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just say all of that side, that hemisphere. Yeah, I need to go there.
So I noticed that you haven't said the continent of Africa. So, I mean, with the with the type of work that you do, I mean,
yes,
Africa is calling.
So let me tell you, Africa is calling, but Africa is calling me more to explore.
Yeah, I understand
mean,
that part. I understand that part. But still, your work has to go to the continent.
Of course.
And I mean,
it needs to go everywhere.
Well, this is true.
That's the aim, everywhere.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
Do you think that your time at Edna significantly helped with you being able to use your creative juices, or has experience and time done it?
I think it's experience in time. Edna did significantly impact me because that's the core for it. That's the foundation for a lot of what I had learned initially. But majority of it at this stage in my life is through exploration, trial and error, willingness to just be brave enough to do what I want to do. And I think that was one of the core core things. Even when I was at Edna, I struggled a little bit because, you know, you're weaving, you're to just do cloth and it ends right there. And so there was always this little dynamism between me and my lecturer, this little push and pull, because they didn't quite understand what it was that I wanted to do at the time, nor see where I could locate myself in a Jamaican art scene with what I wanted to do, because it's not the norm. It's not something that they considered people to invest in, which I still struggle with that, but that's not why I do it anymore, you know. But just navigating all of that. But even though when I went to do my master's, I think that each step enlightened me. You know, because then when I went and did my master's, it was this low residency program. It was a master's in creative practice. So it wasn't like I went and said, okay, I'm going to just solely focus on textiles and fiber arts, you know, or design or anything like that. It was a space that creativity could be anything.
Wow.
And everything. And I think that opened me up to explore things that I've always been interested in, but timid because of my location here in JA, which does affect you somewhat in terms of what you choose to do if you're not willing to take the chance and take the risk. For example, with the performance piece, that's when I was able to even dive into performance art with my practice and allow that to kind of speak with me now, no longer just creating these objects that exist in and of itself. They are also a part of me. You know, and how I become a part of the work and bringing in other performance to then become a part of the work, so then it's no longer this stagnant object. It's this object that evolves, moves, and creates an experience. You know, so yeah, it's been an evolution, I think.
That's nice.
It's just
That's
a constant evolution.
Now, for the, I could talk to you all day, right? Because, because you see, I grew up in the halls of the Smithsonian, right? And I grew up at the National Gallery here, and so art, the expression of art from taking what's in here and putting it on either canvas or in fabric or in wood or in stone, whatever. To see that happen has always intrigued me, right? But for the youngsters that are coming up who see themselves or feel themselves as artists, as creatives, give me some advice that you would give them or guidance that you would give them.
All right, so youngins, learn the rules before you try to break them. Understanding the technicalities of things, it is vitally key. Yes, I know sometimes, you know, you're going to gallery and see something, it's like, hey, I could have do that. But it's really understanding the material, understanding the medium, but also understanding that it is a practice. You're constantly exploring. Ain't nothing new under the sun, but there's always something to learn, something to experience, something to just dive into. And if you go in there with that open-mindedness to say, okay, it's okay to fail at times, but then what else can I do with it? So not even thinking of it as a failure, but thinking of it as a process and a development from step A, B, C, D, all the way down to Z, to kind of understand what it is you're shaping, what it is you're trying to do, but also own your truth. If there's nothing else you don't take away from this, is own your truth. Trust yourself that you know what is best for you and your work. That don't mean you must go fight with your lecturers if you're at any school or anything. Take their advice, learn how to navigate around it, because they're the ones grading you, you know. Try to find a mid-ground. You're a creative person, so you're a problem solver. You're always trying to solve the situation, trying to solve the problem. Don't put up barriers, be open. You know, but also speak your truth, push for your truth, and find ways to allow your truth to be accepted by the mass. So yeah.
Interesting. I like that because it gives that that rebel side and the mother hen side. Because the mother hen is going to say, look, society still have rules to deal with. You have to deal with the reality of things. So learn how to fit that, and then the rebel side say, and when you can do that, then you do what you want.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Oh, give me a message. Give me a message that you would give to the government about the experience of the creative, including yourself and the people who are visual artists?
All right. Okay. All right. Attempt to understand what the arts are. And when we say the arts, it's not limited, or the creative scene, it's not limited to just singular music or even just performance with it, but the visual arts, the fine arts, the design arts. What are the different avenues that there are to, and the different levels there are to the scene of what art is? You know, come into our world, attempt to understand us, and from understanding us and our needs, then you will be able to better serve us, because we're not being served by you with currently what the current status is in Jamaica on a whole. I mean, just customs alone is the worst thing for an artist. An artist can't leave the country and come back with their work and not be charged for their own work that was created here on Jamaican soil, because, oh, it's an artist, we're going to, even though I tell you this is the value of my work, they're going to say, oh no, it needs to be way up there. And I'm like, but that's not what I charge my work for. So I think it would be really great if first, come and just find out about us. We are here, we're a part of the country, we have value to add to the economy. So much value you have no idea if the government comes and explores, accepts us, and just attempt to work with giving us what we need to survive in Jamaica. You are here, you are serving multiple different economies, you're serving multiple different corporate entities, but you've not yet accepted art as a career, as an economy that is worth tapping into, and specifically the visual arts. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. No, a lot of it made sense. The whole thing made sense. Because I've heard it before from other creatives.
Because I can tell you what we need, what we want, etc. You know, but it's really if you are able, if you come and understand it. If you don't understand it, you can't serve us. You won't know how to. You're just going to be listening to other people on the sideline saying, oh, this is what they need, that's what they perhaps need, not necessarily literally knowing that this is what they need. Just like how when election time come, they're going in a city and they're like, yeah man, you need some zinc and you need some this and you need some that. You know the people's needs. So in order for you to understand our needs, you need to come and be with us and integrate with us, you know, and get an understanding, like literally have the open mind, readiness and willingness and need, urge to learn what it is that we have, what it is that we create, and what our general existence pretty much needs to survive in the island.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. That's a great message. And I really hope that government is listening, because even though it came from Katrina, it really is a message that is echoed across the creative industries. Government needs to sit with them, bring them to the table. This thing of customs is major. So anyway,
well, everybody afraid that.
Everybody afraid.
All the artists are afraid. We don't. I mean, there can be such a great export economy with it if it's worked wisely.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and we're brand Jamaica, and you'll be surprised to know how far and wide Jamaican artists have been going and presenting their works that can really push it. Just like the Usain Bolt them. You can find some really awesome artists out there.
Yeah, and you are one of them, because I mean the reception you got, was it in Italy? Which one? Exactly. There was you went somewhere, I think it was in Europe or somewhere, where they just loved your art so much, and you were surprised at the reception. I can't remember exactly the city. I thought it might have been in Italy.
No, I haven't reached there yet.
Okay.
I mean, no, I haven't reached there yet. Not that side. There's Canada.
Was it the Middle East?
There's Canada, there's Germany.
It was Germany. It was Germany.
Okay.
It was in Germany.
It was Germany.
Yes.
Okay, I know that story now that you mentioned Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah, that piece, that was an interesting engagement. It was a work that I had done I had presented it for the biennial here in Jamaica, Kingston Biennial, and they had not chosen it. And I was like, all right, fine, whatever. And one of the panelists came out and she was like, I knew her, and she said to me the work wasn't resolved. And I was like, okay, neither here nor there to me at that point, because for me it's resolved and you can't tell me what needs to be resolved in it, then that's your opinion, you know? And that story is actually when I applied for my master's. So they were in Germany, and the response to the work out of all of my portfolio, those two pieces were the ones that they were in love with and in awe with. And I was like, this is the work that they just rejected. What do you mean by I don't like this piece? I wasn't prepared for this because, you know, in my mind, okay, it's one of the, you know, let's put that at the end or somewhere, hide it among some other stuff in the portfolio. But then it ended up being a piece that they really loved. And that in itself, when I said that everything has been a stage for me, a stepping stage, that experience then enlightened me where I'm like, okay, so it's not that it's not good work and it's not that it's not resolved, you know, because even after all of that, I presented the work at a gallery here, and that very same person that told me that it was unresolved came and she was like, yes, you did it. Yes, you did it. And I was like, which work are you talking? I was like, but I did nothing. No, you did something. I was like, okay, I presented it here. That's the only thing that I did. And so it's not that the work doesn't have value. So it's not that the work isn't resolved or not good enough. It's just that at different moments in time, people experience things differently. They view things differently. And that your work has a place. It don't matter what anybody else said to you. Your work have a place. You can find someone who actually appreciates the pieces that you create. And that's also where it all boils down to being true to yourself, because if I had taken that perspective of what was said to me at the time, then who knows what I'd be doing.
Right, true.
Who knows where I'd be right now with the
Boy, I tell you, it is so difficult to end this conversation because I'm loving this vibe. No, it's not that I keep trying. I'm so loving this vibe, and there's so much more. This is wonderful, Katrina. I want to continue this conversation at another time.
No problem.
I want us to be able to get more of your story and more of your insight, which is for me more in depth than your story, because your story is just something you've been through and what life has given to you, the ingredients to who you are now. Yeah. But the insight is how you're going to move forward and how you're going to bring someone with you or bring a group of people with you. Yeah. I think that's where for you, for the brain that I'm hearing, the brain that I'm talking to, and the brain that I see all over me, that's what I want to tap into, because I think that's where your true love is. Okay. And it comes out in your work. And so I want everybody to experience Katrina Coombs. Please go out there, and the website will be somewhere in the video. Make sure you take in an exhibition from Katrina Coombs. Yes. It's amazing. It's phenomenal. And if you are into freedom of expression, this is going to blow your mind. So thanks again for sitting and staying and listening to this interview, watching this interview. Look out for a lot more. Until such time.
Thank you for checking us out on Good News Jamaica TV for content that informs, inspires, and transforms. Please like, share, leave a comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more positive Jamaica content. Walk good,